1. The owner of the Zhenbao Pavilion. Damn, today is a fortune star, and 2 big deals have been made in succession. Don't worry, listen to me slowly. The first distinguished guest was Mrs. Zhang. Which Mrs. Zhang could you say, of course, is the most frequently mentioned Mrs. Zhang in the restaurant opposite. You said you had never heard of it? That's right. Mrs. Zhang is the wife of the god of war. How dare Mr. Storyteller uses his wife's real name? He usually uses Chu Chao to replace it, because Mrs. Jiang's surname is Chu. Chu Chao is a legend. It turned out that she was just the daughter of a 5-grade official. Later, she married General Jiang by mistake, and suddenly the sparrow turned into a phoenix. In the past, this was a story in a story. Who knew that such a character would come across? The Chu family also had a good life. She married the Jiang family for 7 years, and General Jiang did not take a concubine. General Jiang's mother didn't like the Chu family's low status. She wants General Jiang to divorce her, but he knelt in front of his mother to save her. Thinking about General Jiang, who is invincible in battle, there are times when his iron bones turn into soft fingers. The ladies in Chang'an have been wandering on the street in a man's costumes, and also want to follow the example of Chu to find a lover. You asked me how the Chu and the general met. The old almanac 10 years ago, how could I know this? Stop these crooked thoughts. How can our daughter have the fortunes like others? Let's be content with marrying an ordinary person honestly. Don't worry, I will continue the story. Chu Chao as a sparrow turned into a phoenix. Su Qingxi was the eldest daughter of Duke Rong and the granddaughter of the eldest princess. Her father and uncle were all prominent figures in the court. In Chang'an, except for the princess, there were only a few noble families. I heard that she had a marriage contract with General Jiang when she was a child, so I didn't know why she gave up. General Jiang married the Chu family despite the family's opposition, and she hurriedly married Chen Kai, the eldest son of the Ho family. Marquis of Huainan. Has long hair and short knowledge. Can the Ho family compare with the Jiang family? 10 years ago, the Huainan Ho family was just a second-rate magnate and could not be ranked in Chang'an. In those years, these 2 marriages shocked the whole city. One was low and the other was high, and the 2 brides almost came to the door at the same time. 10 years ago, the 2 were often compared. Mrs. Chen's surname is Su. She has a good family background and a good reputation, but she is not as well married as the Chu family. It's strange to say that the first half of Su's life went smoothly. After meeting the Chu family, they were always overwhelmed. The 2 have been fighting hard until now. The Su family was robbed by the Chu family, causing her to marry in a hurry, and it was difficult after the marriage, so she targeted the Chu family everywhere. You are also saying that it is better to marry well than to have a good life. Look at the Su family, who is noble, smart and beautiful. What if you have everything? It is useless if you don't get the favor of your husband. Thinking about this, they are the same as the protagonist and supporting role in the play. Alas, what do the romantic affairs of the powerful family have to do with our ordinary people? I don't know what kind of family my daughter marries. I'm worried. 2. The storyteller in the second tea house. Dear guest, what we are going to talk about today is the story of a lady and the general. It is said that there is a family surnamed the Chu in the west of Chang'an City. They have a daughter named Chu Chao. She is 16 years old. Unfortunately, she has no luck. The girl's mother is also a good family woman, but she was just a concubine. The first wife didn't like her, so she was kicked out of the Chu family when she was 8 years old. The first wife was so cruel. Every day, the residue house is cold, and she often gets beaten and scolded. Chu Qiao's days are very lonely. Later, her mother saw that Chu Chao was getting older and becoming more beautiful. She had a crooked thought. She promised Chu Chao to the son of a merchant in Changzhou, and planned a generous betrothal gift from the merchant. Coincidentally, Chu Chao went to her mother's place to ask for peace. Hearing her mother's conspiracy, she went back to the room and cried for a while. After she packed up and dressed up as a pretty man, she fled the marriage angrily. Although Chu Chao was a boudoir girl, she was quite resourceful. She exchanged a golden hairpin for a horse and traveled east alone. She entered the boundary of Lingzhou and was planning to rest in the wild for a night. Who would have thought that when looking for a place to live, she found someone on the grass? Who do you think this person is? The guest has guessed right. This person is the famous General Jiang in the capital. He was ordered to go to Lingzhou to eliminate bandits. He was accidentally plotted by the enemy and was injured and unconscious. Chu Chao had kind thoughts in her heart. How could she abandon this person in the wilderness and ignore him? She took this person to a shelter, applied medicine to stop the bleeding, and took care of him for the whole night. The next day, the man woke up, and he was shocked and in love with her at first sight and for her kindness in saving his life. The man said that he was the direct son of Jiang in a general family, and is now an official worshipper of the 5th rank, with a bright future ahead. Thanks to Chu Qiao's rescue, the white-haired parents in the family would not send the black-haired people away. General Jiang personally promised that when he returned to Beijing after his injury, he would send a matchmaker to propose marriage to the parents of the Chu family. Chu Chao returned to Beijing with the general. On the way, the two exchanged heartfelt feelings and became closer and closer. After returning to Beijing, Chu Chao waited for a long time but she still couldn't see any matchmaker come to her house. Chu Qiao's heart was about to break. Could he be lying? Did he return to his hometown, and forgot the righteousness of his benefactor? Don't worry, if you want to know if the general remembers his promise or not, let me continue. It turned out that it was not the general who went back on his words, but that the family had chosen another good wife for the general. This woman was also a noble girl, named ᎢℋᎪNNǒ. She had a beautiful face and a demure demeanor. She is also the general childhood friend. It is a good match. However, the general already had someone he longed for in his heart, and he was unmoved. He rejected the marriage arranged by his parents and married the beautiful daughter of the Chu family, which became a legend for a while. Although Chu Chao is already a wife of Jiang's family, because of her low status, her mother-in-law is not kind, and her sister-in-law is not happy. After the wedding, there were many difficulties, and ᎢℋᎪNNǒ was provoked to act as a stalk. Chu Chao was in a difficult situation, which was even worse than her parents' family. Fortunately, the general and Chu Qiao's relationship was stronger, and the husband and wife are of one heart and one mind, and finally influence the in-laws. The mother-in-law treats her like her own daughter, and her sister-in-law also respects her with courtesy like her elder sister. Oh, it can be said that heaven will reward good people, and evil will get what they deserve. ᎢℋᎪNNǒ married into an official family and was often called to drink by her mother-in-law, was not liked by her husband, and there were groups of concubines in the family. On the opposite side, Chu Qiao's husband and wife are beautiful, and everyone is harmonious and happy. Compared between the two of them, is it sad? Or fortunately? 3. Chu Chao. When I woke up today, there was a faint sound of rain outside the window, and the chill of the early autumn came over the house. There was the voice of the little girl twittering under the porch. Before the master got up, they were so noisy. My heart became more and more irritable. I wanted to drive these noisy girls away, but looking around the desolate bedroom but there was no one around. I feel more powerless in my heart. Since I married into the Jiang family, I have felt powerless more and more frequently. I remembered the storyteller in the tea house a few days ago. In his play, I had been favored and became Jiang Shiying's wife. I was beautiful and loved by God. Before marrying, I also thought I was loved by God. Although I encountered a car accident, I was lucky to travel through time. I happened to meet Jiang Shiying, who was injured and unconscious on the way to escape from my marriage. Although there was a great disparity, Jiang Shiying refused countless famous girls and fell in love with me alone. Therefore, even if no one in the original family is happy for me, and even if my mother-in-law and sister-in-law don't like me, I still marry the Jiang family with envious eyes and jealousy. Cinderella married the prince after all difficulties. Next, they will live happily together, love each other all their lives, have children, and have a safe and happy life. Unfortunately, this is a fairy tale. Less than half a month after we got married, I met ᎢℋᎪNNǒ. I vaguely know some stories about ᎢℋᎪNNǒ and Jiang Shiying. They are childhood sweethearts and they are in the same household. I heard that the parents of both sides have already reached an agreement. Just waiting for ᎢℋᎪNNǒ, the Jiang family will come to propose marriage. She is the perfect daughter-in-law in her mother-in-law's heart, a well-known lady with both talent and beauty in the eyes of her aunt, and a default future hostess in the hearts of the Jiang family. If it wasn't for me, this would all be a reality. I stood behind the shade of the tree and looked at my rival. Finally, I had to admit that she was beautiful, elegant in speech, and high in temperament. She was a perfect lady. There is a faint sense of superiority in my heart. She is mostly a beautiful but boring doll-like girl. Who wants to marry such an old-fashioned wife? I am different from these ancient boudoirs. I am smarter and more interesting, so Jiang Shi should fall in love with me and try his best to dismiss ᎢℋᎪNNǒ. With this advantage, I began to pay attention to ᎢℋᎪNN secretly. She got married. The other party was just an unknown direct son of the Marquis's house, which was very different from ᎢℋᎪNN, who led the army. After marriage, she was rarely seen at the banquet, as if her mother-in-law was quite difficult to deal with and set her rules every day. Later, when I heard that her husband brought back a singer from outside, she was quite favored. She has to accept everything as a virtuous wife. Compared with this former proud daughter of heaven, it seems that my situation is not bad. My mother-in-law became more and more indifferent to me, my sister-in-law kept sneering and ridiculing me, and the servants in the inner court gradually refused to accept the discipline. I consider myself to be kind to my subordinates, never beating or scolding them, but they began to cheat and play tricks. I told my waitresses that all women are equal and that they should become my most capable and loyal subordinates in the Jiang family, but I saw them trying to climb on ᎢℋᎪNN's bed when he was drunk. What scares me the most is that ᎢℋᎪNN has changed. It was an indifference that could not be seen on the surface but spread from the bottom of my heart. He seemed to be aware of it, and he kept his spirits up every time he talked to me. He tried hard not to let me notice his burnout, but every time I saw him talking to me with caring words as if he had completed a task, I felt numb with my hands and feet. An overwhelming fear gripped me firmly. What would happen if ᎢℋᎪNN stopped loving me? I can't imagine. After Cinderella and the prince got married, what happened to them? Can Cinderella manage her marriage well when the initial novelty passes? Will the prince love her forever? After those happy endings that the fairy tales didn't mention, did the story develop as imagined? I felt pain and depression. The exquisite and beautiful Jiang mansion was like a huge cage, making it hard for me to breathe. I gradually hate the endless banquets in Chang'an. Those bright and beautiful ladies are like sisters to me on the surface, but their eyes and actions are all showing contempt, as if saying, "Look, this is a concubine who married into a wealthy family. I heard that she can't even manage her servants." Whenever I feel this kind of malice, I want to turn around and leave. I always think of ᎢℋᎪNN. She is of noble birth, talented and beautiful, but so what? She is as unpopular at her mother-in-law's house. Her husband doesn't love her or even want to respect her. I heard that she gave birth to 2 daughters in 3 years, so she had to take the initiative to take a concubine to her husband. I heard that a maid was raised as a concubine 2 days ago. Although ᎢℋᎪNN was cold to me, he never mentioned taking a concubine. Which woman is not suppressed by her mother-in-law after marriage? At least I still have the love of my husband. Compared with most women, I am really happy. Only this little bit of comfort, like the light of a spark in the long winter night, supports me in the tedious housework, my mother-in-law's cold face for several years, the pressure of 7 years of unrelenting pressure, and a harmonious relationship between husband and wife. The sound of rain under the corridor continued in a string, and the autumn cold penetrated through the quilt and penetrated the bones. I closed my eyes and seemed to return to the night when we first met. The stars were reflected in his eyes. He said, "When I go back, what should I call you?" 4. ᎢℋᎪNN. The first half of my life, to others, is unique. I was reincarnated in the wrong mansion of a first-class family in Chang'an, occupying as a successor of the family. As soon as I was born, I stood at a height that many people could not reach in their lives. With a noble identity, my parents' favor, and my appearance is beautiful. God seems to focus all good luck on me. Everyone envied me for giving me a good life, but they always ignored my efforts. For example, I began to learn piano, chess, calligraphy and painting at the age of 5, and I never slacked off. For example, although my mother was the daughter of a princess, she had a strong personality and was not liked by my father, and I could not count the number of concubines in my family. For example, power is prominent, but the conflict in the family is extremely cruel. When I was 6 years old, I realized that no one was reliable except myself. When I was 10 years old, one of my father's favorite concubines tried to poison me, and I swallowed the sweetened cakes without changing my face. When I was dying in bed with poisoning, everyone shed tears of distress, complaining that my father favored his concubine that tried to kill me, and my father was speechless with guilt. And the favored concubine who had been pressing on me and my mother never appeared again. Everyone pities me for being well-behaved and sensible, only I know what a terrible soul is under this innocent appearance. And the only accident was when I pretended to be poisoned. The young man who hugged me and hurriedly looked for a physician. He is the only direct son of the Jiang family, and I treat him as a talisman, but he treats me like a sister with sincerity. Those who can marry him must be very happy. More and more I don't want to hand over such a loving and righteous handsome gentleman to others. Since I don't want to, then it's mine. In the next 5 years, I intend to befriend his mother and sister, and I intend to let his mother see that I should be an incomparable match with Jiang Shai. Under my dedicated guidance, when I was 13 years old, the elders of both sides signed an oral marriage contract. When I was 15 years old, I refused to call him brother again, and I called him Xiaoying with half-true birthday wishes. From 10 to 15, I always wanted to call him like this. Who wants to be his sister? From the beginning, I wanted to be his wife. However, God finally refused to take care of me. Before the announcement of the marriage contract, he met Chu Qiao, and the lonely man and widowed woman lived together overnight. Chu Qiao's reputation was ruined. If Jiang Xiaoying didn't marry her, I'm afraid she would never get married again. Jiang Xiaoying would naturally not let a woman ruin her life because of him. For the first time, he disobeyed his parents and chose Chu Qiao. I fell in love with him because of his kindness and righteousness, and I hated him because of his kindness and righteousness. The husband I had been optimistic about since I was a child married another person. My parents were so anxious that they could not sleep every night, so they chose Chen-Kai from 1,000 choices. I quietly watched the delicate and beautiful teenager chatting and laughing with my father behind the screen. Finally, I nodded in my mother's expectant eyes, just him. Since it's not Jiang Xiaoying, what difference does it make who you marry? In September of the 15th year of Changning, I married a strange man with long fenghua and red makeup. On the first day of marrying into Hua Mansion, I finally saw Chen-Kai's face, a tall delicate face. When he lifted my covering veil, he couldn't hide the surprise in his eyes. The next day, Chen-Kai and I served tea to my in-laws. I advanced and retreated respectfully and courteously. My in-laws were very satisfied and did not embarrass me. When I came back on the third day, my mother sent me away with tears. From then on, the Duke Mansion was no longer my home. I came back in the morning, after returning to the Ho family. Although my mother-in-law didn't ask me, I still took the initiative to go greet her, and at night I have to bring tea and water to my mother-in-law. Jiang Xiaoying did everything for Chu Qiao, but let my 10 years of planning and waiting come to nothing. He married as beloved as he wished, and I had to replease my mother-in-law in this strange mansion and win over people's hearts. Hearing that Chu Qiao's temperament is unruly, she received cold treatment from her mother-in-law. She said that she was ill and did not go to ask for peace. Jiang Xiaoying should personally plead guilty to his mother, which saved her from the morning and evening. She was jealous and suspicious and kicked Jiang Xiaoying out of the room. So all of the beautiful maids were sent away. Jiang Xiaoying said nothing, and let her replace all the people around her with servants. She was weak and incompetent, unable to convince the public, and the management of the inner house is a mess. Jiang Xiaoying deals with subordinates who offend Chu Qiao with the military laws. You see, I can only get it through careful planning. Chu Qiao doesn't have to do anything, she has someone to stand in front of her and take care of her properly. Maybe men like innocent and ignorant women. Just like my father always favors the weak and crying concubine, Jiang Xiaoying will fall in love with Chu Qiao, who will always cause trouble. Who dares to pay for a sinful woman like me? What about sincerity? My mother-in-law was satisfied, her servants were in awe, and she treated her with respect. Through the initial difficulties, my life in the Huainan mansion became more and more stable, until half a year later, Chen-Kai brought back a beautiful singer from outside. I still remember that day was sunny. I was painting begonia outside the window in my study, and when Chen-Kai brought Lu Ji in front of me, I felt unbelievable. For half a year, I thought that no bride in Chang'an could do better than me. Even so, in just half a year, Chen-Kai became fond of the new and hated the old, and wanted to take a concubine. I was furious, but the angrier I was in my heart, the calmer my expression became. I even smiled with righteousness as the first wife gently took the singer's hand, and told her to serve Chen-Kai well. Chen-Kai seemed to be worried that I was not good to his concubine. After a cup of tea, he turned around and left. I feel exhausted. Am I not doing well enough? After 10 years of painstaking planning, my childhood sweetheart left me. I took good care of the family, but my husband was devoted to taking a concubine. The singer is young and beautiful. She can stand out among the many beauties in the Jinyuji. She has a black heart. She was still young and all her scheming was exposed in her eyes and tried to rely on Chen-Kai's favor to replace me. It was simply naive. And I just need to hold her and make her more and more arrogant. In the end, there was a big mess that was dealt with by my mother-in-law herself. All this is just 3 months apart. Maybe he was told by his mother. Since the singer, ᎢℋᎪNN has never mentioned taking a concubine. He stayed in my room for a longer time, exchanging poems with me, exchanging chess skills, and sometimes discussing government with me. In the eyes of outsiders, our husband and wife are as good as before, and our relationship is harmonious and exemplary, which can be regarded as a model. This apparent harmony lasted only 2 years. Within 2 years, ᎢℋᎪNN's official journey was smooth, and Hao's family became first-class magnates. At the same time, he was quick-thinking and beautiful, and gradually became known in the capital as well known as ᎢℋᎪNN. I gave birth to 2 daughters in a row, the pressure of not having a son is increasing, and the beautiful girl in the house is ready to move. Before my mother-in-law opened her mouth, I took the initiative to take a concubine for him. My reputation spread far and wide, and my mother-in-law also greatly appreciated my sensibleness. How could they know that although the 2 concubines calculated each other, they never dared to challenge my authority? Although ᎢℋᎪNN had 2 more concubines, he still stayed in my room every night. With ᎢℋᎪNN's work, my orders in the inner house were far more useful than ᎢℋᎪN's. I have replaced my mother-in-law's position and became the hostess of the Marquis of ᎢℋᎪNN. The stories in the rumors are no longer what people imagined. The 7th year after marriage, I became pregnant again and went to ᎢℋᎪN temple to pay my vows. When you see the river when you go up the mountain, you should stand outside the temple. The peach blossoms inside the wall are brilliant and eye-catching. He stands straight under the flowers, like the breeze in the mountains, and the green pines on the cliff. When he looks at you, it is like the sharpest. The sword is cold and cold, but it can make you feel extremely reliable. There are no attendants, no ᎢℋᎪNN, no Chu-Chao, and time seems to go back to the past. I walked towards him slowly, as if I had ran into him countless times when I was young. At that time, I was full of ambition. Half of the time every day was fantasizing about being his wife, and the other half was arranging the next random encounter. On the school grounds, the stables, and the study room, from a naughty boy to a young general, I participated in every step of his growth, but I missed his future. As if hearing the summer wind blowing through the hall, I turned over the signatures I copied with him by the window. I finally walked up to him, but I didn't take his arm as easily as I did when I was young. I raised my face slightly and smiled at him slowly. Brother Jiang, how are you doing lately? His eyes were as dark as night, and he nodded his chin as indifferently as in previous years. It's good. How about you? Did you feel wronged in the Ho family? No, since childhood. Who can give me grievances? With a faint smile on his lips, he raised his hand and seemed to want to stroke the top of my hair, but he gave up. That's good, I can go to Mobi in peace. What about later? I can't remember anymore. I only know that he has left, and there is no more news. The cold-faced god of war ᎢℋᎪNN's reputation is getting bigger and bigger. His superb tactics and legendary romantic love are circulating in the streets and alleys, and I have completely disappeared from his life. 5. ᎢℋᎪNN. The sky was dim, the dusk was in harmony, and the last trace of sun hit the ground, which was integrated with the yellow sand. Chang'an is still willow green and flowers red, but the wind in the north of the desert has long brought the chill of winter. I watched a lonely day melt into the darkness, and suddenly I wanted to know what she was doing. It is difficult for me to recall how we met. It seems that she always appeared by my side, and we read books together. She is 3 years younger than me. When I was learning calligraphy, she couldn't even hold the pen well. Even so, she cried and wanted to stay with me, and then she rubbed the ink all over her body. Thinking of that painted face, I couldn't help twitching the corners of my lips. The personal guards beside me were taken aback. I raised my face embarrassedly and scolded him for being inattentive when patrolling. My guards were very ashamed and took the initiative to ask for a vigil that night. Sending away the annoying personal guards, I recalled my childhood with her again. When she was about 10 years old, she accidentally ate poisonous pastries, which were very dangerous. At that time, her face was as pale as paper, and she tried to tell me not to worry. But how can I not worry? She probably doesn't know how domineering poison is. Even if she later found that the poison was very strange, I couldn't help but be afraid that my favorite sister almost left me forever. From 10 to 18, I always thought that emotion was brotherhood and sisterhood. I met all her requirements. My weapon room was not allowed to enter, but she could play with my favorite sword at will. I practice martial arts and didn't like someone around me, but she could stay on campus until she fell asleep. She refused to call me brother when she was 15 years old, and I felt helpless, but I let her call me by my name. I always thought that these exceptions were all siblings. In the 14th year of Changning, I was ordered to suppress bandits, but I was subdued in Liuhuo carelessly. I am truly grateful to ᎢℋᎪNNO. Without her, I might have already died in the suburbs of Liuhuo. For the first time, I came into contact with such a lively, bold and fearless girl. And she stayed with me all night. She may not know the consequences of doing so, but I couldn't pretend that I didn't understand, so I promised to marry her. At that time, I didn't know that my mother had signed an oral marriage contract with Sue's mother, nor did I understand my true intention. However, I asked myself that even if I knew the marriage contract at the beginning, I'm afraid I couldn't let ᎢℋᎪNNO be ruined by me and delay her life. Therefore, from the beginning, this was a death situation. After returning to Beijing, my marriage to ᎢℋᎪNNO was opposed by everyone. My mother and sister took turns to persuade me. ᎢℋᎪNNO ran away from the marriage without permission. Even without me, her reputation would have been ruined. But ᎢℋᎪNNO is my savior after all, and I do not allow myself to do such ungrateful things. Later, I saw her in the Jiang mansion. I hadn't seen her for a few days. She lost so much weight. I always thought she didn't know about our engagement, but it didn't seem to be the case. I carefully concealed her, but I didn't want to get married to hurt her. Unfortunately, the last person I want to hurt is the most hurt by me in the end. After getting married, I found that ᎢℋᎪNNO didn't match my imagination. She had a straight temper and had many conflicts with my mother. I had to switch between them. I can only use military law to help her stand up. My wife should be docile and intelligent, able to appease my mother and sister and deter subordinates. I suddenly felt shocked. Who is the prototype of my imaginary wife? Just as I was confused by family affairs, politics, and my unclear mind, I learned the news of her engagement. She is going to get married. The sister I took care of since I was a child. My sister, who I can't bear to disobey any of her wishes, will marry a strange man with another surname and spend the rest of her life with another man. The sudden heartache finally made me understand that I didn't think of her as my sister. Rather than handing her over to others, I want her to stay by my side, let me protect her, take care of her, and spend my whole life messing around with her. This kind of awakening came too late. A few days before she got married, I had insomnia all night, but on the day she got married, I fell asleep strangely. In my dream, I saw a lot of guests in Zhongfu. I saw her wearing long fanggua and slowly lifting off her covering veil. The dream is too real, and I feel even more painful after waking up. I used to push her away with my own hands, but what's the use of having such a dream now? I despise myself like this. However, the dream became more and more real. I saw her sitting under the porch talking to her mother-in-law. She sat in front of the dressing mirror and drew her eyebrows and put on hairpins. I also saw her pestering me to teach her martial arts, holding her cheeks and staring at me when I was dealing with military affairs. Follow me until I can't bear to end her silent interruption with a kiss. So detailed, I even doubt whether the reality and the dream are true or not, or that it is the life we should have. I couldn't give ᎢℋᎪNNO the company she deserved, and I couldn't face Su Qingxi, who was married to another man, let alone replace chen-Ke. I began to indulge in dreams and even jealous of the self who was able to stay with her in the dream. I know I can't go on like this anymore. My responsibility is to protect my family and the country, not to spend my will in a dream of nothingness. I asked myself to go to Mobi, and the sage quickly approved it. Before leaving Beijing, I sent ᎢℋᎪNNO to Qian Temple. I knew exactly what she asked for in Qian Temple, but I was destined to fail her in this life. I was waiting outside the temple. My eyesight was very good, and I recognized her carriage from a distance. I watched her approach me step by step. I thought my heart was like stagnant water, but when I saw her, ripples appeared, setting off monstrous waves. She stood so close, but she asked me reservedly and alienated, "How are you doing?" I want to tell her that I'm very bad. To stay away from her, I have to go far away. In the end, I can only say that everything is fine. I am not afraid of wind and sand, not afraid of wars, but I am afraid that you will have a bad life, that you will be wronged in your in-laws' house. I'm afraid that your husband won't love you and can't protect you. And I'm afraid that you will be alone and face the ups and downs of the future. Qingxi, I love you more than life, but I'd rather you never know. 6. chen-Ke. From a very young age, I knew that I was different. I am smarter than my peers. I will never forget the books that the teacher taught me once, and I can understand the thoughts of the people around me at a glance. Therefore, I grew up in the favor of everyone. In their eyes, I am an immortal genius and the hope of the rejuvenation of the Ꭲ⎪ᎪNņ family. But I feel bored. I am bored with the people around me. I know what they are thinking at a glance, and I can easily let them do things according to my ideas. I am proud, but also lonely. When my parents engaged me, I was not touched, but there was one more boring person beside me. In Sioux Mansion, I observed Father Sioux's expression and talked freely according to his wishes. I know that there is someone behind the screen. The day I got married was the first time I saw her, and she was gorgeous. If the puppet that was forcibly stuffed into me was so beautiful, it wouldn't be too hard to accept. Please, toast tea, go back to the door. She surprised me more and more as if walking alone in the desert for a long time. I finally met another same person. I think if she is more sincere with me, I will be completely inseparable from her. However, before I fell completely, various signs made me have to face another problem. She loves someone else. That person is Jiang Xiang, a well-known young general in Beijing. I am proud and narcissistic. There are very few people I admire, and Jiang Xiang is one of them. Before that, I admired this man quite a lot. And now, I wish he never showed up. During that time, I had a very bad temper, and my beloved woman was loving someone else. This was a big blow to all men in the world, and for me, it was even more of a blow. That day, I was drinking in the Jinyuji, and I fell in love with Liuji among the many beauties. I never told Asi that Liuji's eyes were very similar to her. When covered with the veil, it was as if she was by my side. I was the only one in her eyes. I brought Liuji back to the home mansion. Women are all jealous. Maybe with Liuji, she will feel a sense of crisis, and then she will forget Jiang Xiang as soon as possible, and let me enter her heart. I deliberately waited for a cup of tea, hoping to see jealousy and anger on her face, even if there was only a little fluctuation. As long as I could tear off her common indifferent mask, I would be very satisfied. As a result, no. She smiled and held Liuji's hand to talk to her. I never enjoyed this kind of treatment, but a singer took the lead. I looked unhappy at the hands they were holding and left the table angrily. As I expected, in just 3 months, Liuji was dealt with without bloodshed by her. And she looked even colder towards me, and even her maid had a bad face towards me. I finally realized that I might have used the wrong method or even the opposite. After that, I followed her will and gradually handed over the management of the home mansion to her hands. Since she didn't believe me, I gave her the right. I once saw Jiang Xiang from a distance. At that time, he looked at Asi's carriage with painful and depressed eyes. I suddenly figured out that I am her husband, and her future years will belong to me. Compared with Jiang Xiang who lost her forever, I have a lifetime to make her fall in love with me. So, if she wants anything, just get what she wants. Anyway, she is mine. The 7th year of marriage is my favorite year. First, AC gave birth to our first son, and second, Jiang Xiang, the unsightly guy, finally left. I often feel frightened. If my parents didn't propose marriage to the Sioux mansion, if you didn't nod your head behind the screen, would I lose you forever? So, even if you don't love me, it doesn't matter, you are still by my side. It is the luckiest thing. The most important thing is that sooner or later you will fall in love with me. 7. Space Administrator. Well, why should Jiang Shi die on the battlefield before he is 30 years old? He should be a marquis and a good name forever. Wait, why didn't ᎢℋᎪNņ, the eternal traitor, launch a coup? Isn't he eager to destroy everything? How could he protect Chang'an so hard in the war? What's the matter? Why did Su Qingxi marry ᎢℋᎪNņ? Isn't she Jiang Xiang's wife? Why did the story change like this? Who is this Qiuqiao? I just take a nap, how can it change so much? Should they be reborn? I don't know if they can get back on track. Who is reborn? End of story.